and it's...
That's confusing, isn't it? With us one way on there and another way on there.
Yeah, just ignore that one. I should turn the screen off. Okay, well, Facebook has let people know that we're live now, so people will come on as we're talking. But I just wanted to introduce tonight and say thanks for coming on and joining us for this very different live tonight. Obviously, it's normally just me talking, but I didn't know which way to go then because it's flipped on the screen.
Can't tell that way.
I've got my husband Dan and my daddy Roger, which sounds very strange to call you Roger. You can say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
And they have agreed to help me tonight because I wanted to talk about mental health from the perspective of a dad, and both of them have unfortunately been through or been the partner of somebody going through a maternal mental health problem. So I'm very interested to hear what they've got to say, and I've sort of prepared some questions that are going to hopefully get you both to open up and talk honestly, or as honestly as you can, about what it was like for you, or to talk about mental health from a man's perspective and from a dad's perspective. Chelsea's there. Hello, Chelsea.
Hey, Chelsea.
Have you got any tissues ready?
Oh, yeah, might need some.
And so obviously we've not done this before, so be kind to them. They've never done a live before. Don't fire loads of questions at them straight away.
Gentle.
What was I going to say? So yeah, I've got some questions that I'm going to ask both of them, and then I'm sure it'll spark off different things. Hi Vicky, hope you're okay. And obviously at the end you can ask some questions, and it's just an informal session, but I've structured it a little bit so that they know roughly what I'm, where it's going, and I've got some questions, like I say, and one person has prepared some answers, one person is going to talk off the cuff, and this is because they're both very different, and it'll be interesting. So just when you come on, say hello, say whatever you want to say. Vicky's sent us 2 little kisses there. Can you see?
Oh.
Thanks, Vicky.
Thanks, Vicky.
So I'm just also, as I go, I'm kind of explaining the world of Facebook Lives to them. So you'll have to bear with us. Right then, we will start by... Before I even start the questions, I wanted to just acknowledge that today is something called International Father's Mental Health Day. So what that means is it's an awareness day to kind of just get people to think about dads when they have a new baby, or throughout their whole fatherhood journey, really, because dads often get forgotten about, and so it's important that this is acknowledged, and men just by nature find it more difficult to talk about these kind of subjects and their emotions. So that was the idea behind this anyway, but that's enough from me. Before I start, do either of you want to say anything, or should we go for it?
We'll wait for our cues.
Yeah, fire away and I'll do my best. That's all I can do.
Yeah.
Is my best.
That's all we can do.
That sounds good.
I'll just do this first.
Okay, we do that in unison then.
Oh.
So what I'll do is I'll read the question, and then I'm going to select who's going to answer it first. Okay. So, did you consider your mental health or your emotional state before becoming a dad? So were you aware of your emotional needs? Were you aware that you had any kind of mental health needs? I'm going to ask Dan first on this one.
Me.
And you can answer to the camera,
To the
because there
camera.
might be somebody watching who needs to hear it.
Well, I think if I'm honest, I was probably quite naive when it comes to that subject at that time. I've probably learnt a lot more since. I think in my mind, I felt like I wasn't prone to any kind of mental health conditions. I know so much more now, but
Yeah,
at that time,
say it how it was.
yeah, at that time, I probably didn't think I was susceptible to any mental health condition. I just thought I knew of it, but I didn't ever think that it could be something that could affect me or really be in my life in any way. I was quite naive. That's my honest
Good
thoughts on that,
answer.
really.
So you weren't necessarily aware of having any, you know, like when something stressful happens or something bad happens, that might affect your...
Now looking
mental
back, with what I
health.
know now, looking back, I think everyone has spells of where their mental health isn't as good as it could be, but I wasn't really aware of it then, and I probably since then, having Aria, I've probably been tested mentally more than I ever have been, and I'm more aware of it now.
Definitely. Good answer. There's no right or wrong answer
No,
here,
well,
but
yeah,
obviously the point of this is just to share a man's perspective, which we don't get as much.
I will say as well, even though before we had Aria, you were already making steps towards psychotherapy, so I was already learning a bit more, and I'd hear about things, but I just wouldn't really take them on board. I just sort of think, oh right, that's that, but
yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. And what about you, Daddy, then? So can you remember the question, or do you want me to say it again?
I can't remember the question now.
So, did you consider your own mental health or
Right.
emotional state before becoming a dad?
Right. Absolutely not.
Really?
No, because you kind of don't, do you?
That's really interesting.
Because it's not something that would ever have crossed my mind, and until you are a dad, and if you go through something like we've all been through, well, not you, but Dan and I have been through, then you definitely do start questioning your mental health. But beforehand, absolutely not a thought was given to my mental state, because we're impervious, aren't we, men?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we think we're fireproof, and you know, it just doesn't
happen to us.
I think it's a bit different now, because I think there's massive awareness, or there's a greater awareness now than there ever was. Certainly back in the day when I was first a dad, which was way before you were even an embryo, isn't it? Obviously.
And
So
it's a
no,
different
so
generation, because mental health wasn't really spoken about at all.
So it's a big fat no, really. I guess if it happens a second time, which in a small way it did to me, then yes, you are aware of what state you can be in when that all goes wrong. But that's only because it had gone wrong once for me, and then it went wrong in the same way for Dan. So
were you a little bit fearful the second time? Well, not you didn't know it was going to be a second time, but when Sarah was pregnant.
When Mummy was pregnant with Sarah, then yes, I was very apprehensive.
But that was relatively soon after.
But I don't think I gave a hoot about my mental health.
About yourself.
About myself, because as I say, we're bomb-proof, aren't we, blokes? That's why there are more suicides amongst young men than there are women of the same age, because women tend to be a little bit more aware of their own mental health.
And they talk about it more. That's one of the.
But now, thank God, men are talking a bit more about it. But the stiff upper lip, you know, mental health, it doesn't affect me. Attitude is endemic amongst the male population.
Yeah.
That's my answer to that.
Well, thank you.
Because if you don't, because we'll be here all night if you listen to me rambling on.
No, but it's just really, it's really refreshing, and I'm sure it's refreshing for people watching to hear this, because you know a lot of people wouldn't acknowledge it, and just the fact that you've agreed to do this live and talk about it is a massive step in the right direction. And
it's very difficult for us.
Very difficult for you to
Just
sit and have a beer.
take another drink.
Well done.
Okay, so I'm going to do the second question and ask you first, Daddy, and then Dan.
Oh.
So was your mental health affected after having a baby? And if so, how? I think I know the answer, but we need to...
Yeah, well, I've already touched on that, haven't I? yes, when we went through what we went through, there were definitely some scars, but not exactly recognisable at the time as a mental health issue. But certainly, breaking down in tears at the rugby club is not something that you want everyone to see. But that's what happened to me, and just suddenly. So that moment made me very, very aware that I wasn't quite right, and it had all been a little bit too much for me. Talking to a mouse that was in our fireplace was another indication that all was not quite well upstairs with me. When your mother was in hospital, and I was, and so being me, didn't put the heating on in the house, because what's the point? I sat in a freezing cold lounge with my overcoat on, talking to a mouse. I mean, I know I am, most people think I'm barking anyway, but that's just something that was an indicator that all was not quite at home upstairs. Daniel?
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
that fully answers the question, because it's just about acknowledging.
I bet you haven't got a mouse story, have you?
I bet he has.
You did remind me of something there. I think
So yeah,
one
same question to Dan.
One thing straight away I can relate to what Roger was just saying there that I hadn't thought of initially was, I guess my mental health was affected somewhat, but like Roger's saying, you don't really think about it at the time. You sort of just naturally fall into supportive mode. Right, it's my job now. I've got to support everyone and be strong for everyone, and you just focused on that at the start.
And you were very practical, like you just had to kind of
just being practical and go, right, problem solve. That's what we do. Do it. And but then what Roger's just made me remember when he's talking about the rugby club is thinking, I'm looking back and thinking, I'm playing that role, be sportive, right? Didn't really have many emotions showing. And then when you were in hospital, and I was doing long hours in hospital with you and Ara, long drive backwards and forwards and getting home, and to wind down a little bit, I'd watch some TV, watch some Netflix, and I just remember seeing an episode of whatever it was. Anyway,
Breaking Bad.
No, it wasn't.
Bad,
It wasn't Breaking Bad. It was the one with he's in
Better
jail,
Call Saul.
where he's in jail for wrongfully. I can't remember.
Oh, Making a Murderer.
Making a Murderer,
That's
right?
the
Like
one.
you've probably seen it, but at the end, it's a very sad story, and I think it was the last episode. And it's very sad because he's in jail for so long. So it basically was something very sad, and it just triggered me, like the sadness of whatever was happening in that program, triggered me, and once the floodgates open, once the floodgates open, I was just like, poof. I was sort of gone, and I just remember like describing it to people the next day, saying like, I think the neighbours 3 doors down were probably affected. I was just wailing, and it was just really strange because like, we didn't
But
do
it's got
that.
to come out.
But wailing in a
somewhere.
mental illness way, or wailing because you felt sorry for yourself?
I don't know. It was like
was sad.
uncontrollable,
Like
just
sadness.
And to this day I can't explain it. I can only explain that. I saw something sad and it triggered
And it
sadness
was
in my
probably
life.
just that, one thing, and then that episode or whatever bit you saw just tipped you over the edge, sort of emotionally.
Yeah.
But even that is a massive thing for a man to talk about and admit, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Because
suppose,
to show vulnerability as a man.
I don't
It's really
care
important.
actually anymore about all that. No, I don't. But yes, in my hyperactive younger years, I did care about being, what a man's supposed to be, and and it's bollocks, to be honest. You know, because you've got to open your mouth, otherwise it can get you into a bad place.
Definitely.
Which I never went into a very bad place. Anyway, but that's only the second question, isn't it?
Yeah, no. Only other thing I was gonna.
No, I'm not in a rush.
The only thing I was gonna add to quickly on that was, you know, being a parent for the first time is just like hard, full stop. Anyway, isn't it? Whether there's an illness involved or not. So it's it was hard. I think it's hard anyway, but I didn't know any different because that was my experience. But it was hard anyway because lack of sleep with little one and things like that, and with P&D involved in it, I think I can only assume it was probably a bit harder, but I don't know any different because it's just hard anyway, isn't it? So,
I was going to mention that at the beginning actually, and you've just reminded me that I forgot to say that, because I was going to say without mental health in the picture, it's still a really, really hard transition for dads and for mums, and you know, the transition for dads doesn't really get spoken about as much, but their life changes just as much as yours, and absolutely everything changes. You know, your life will never be the same, never be what it was before, so that's a lot to adjust to on its own without a mental health thing thrown into the mix. So my next question is, this is where it's going to open up a bit.
Oh, hello.
Veronica, by the way, hello Veronica. She says it's so good to hear from a male perspective and so good of you to talk, to both open up. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's Veronica.
Well done, Dan.
So what I'm going to now, Dan,
you.
can you talk a little bit, share a little bit about what it was like to be the partner of someone going through postnatal depression or psychosis?
Okay. Well,
where do you start?
Yeah, where do you start? What was it like?
For somebody who may not have been through that.
Well, like parenting on the whole, I think it's a mixed bag is the best way to describe it. Obviously, you're over the moon that you've got a beautiful, healthy baby. Well, in our experience, that was the case, and so that's great. And it's normal for, as I just said, being a parent for the first time is really hard, but with your experience of P&D, it just it felt like it was a lot harder than it needed to be.
Yeah. So what kind of things were hard about it? Like what do you think were the biggest struggles for you?
Biggest struggles. One of the things, obviously, is that, you know, in this situation, the closest person to you is kind of not there. In our situation, not there, so it's quite it was quite lonely because obviously the closest person to me had changed. The illness had kind of taken you away from me. So at a time when obviously I probably needed you the most, and so that was quite lonely. I think. Also, I'm gonna look at my notes a little bit because I go a bit blank when I'm talking about these things. But
it's a hard thing to think about as well.
So, what was it like for me? Saying with
I mean, you've kind of explained it anyway. It was just from a dad's perspective. What was it like to have a partner going through that? And
I've put here things I've listed here is tough, which it is. It's demanding, and I've put lonely, but confusing as well. It's a really confusing time because when your partner has P&D to the level that you had it, because I know there's different levels, but you know, I don't know anyone. I've always said I don't know anyone that kind of wanted a baby more than you did. It was like your life ambition, you know, so maternal. And then when the time came for you to be that so far the other way and be not wanting to bond with a child, not bonding with her or anything, you know, intrusive thought, like Sarah was having really intrusive thoughts that weren't nice, and so that's confusing, and you just have to get past that and realise that it's the illness and it's not you, because if I didn't realise that and just thought, oh, this is you and that's what you're like now, and then you'd
That's
want to
it,
walk away,
forever.
wouldn't you? Really. But yeah,
Mm.
so those are some of the difficulties. Is there anything else I've put in?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
you said
Jess,
all
I've
of
said a
them.
lot. I'll talk for too long if I
Yeah.
carry on, but yeah.
Thank you for being honest about difficult times.
So,
We're a very open family anyway, so we talk about things, don't we? But
Oh, everything.
it's good to do it in front of, or to show other people that we're doing it,
Mm.
because then maybe it'll help someone else open up. So, to my daddy,
Give us
What,
question
um,
again.
what was it like to be the partner of someone going through that?
Shit. Is,
Yeah.
is how I would
Horrid.
describe it. There's a lot of self-blame that goes on. I don't know why, but that's kind of what I somehow felt guilty. I don't know why. I definitely wanted children, and Sue was. I don't think wanted children as much as me. So when all this happened, I did feel guilt. My reaction and what got me. Oh, you might have another question later on.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just go with the flow.
What got me through all this actually was just beating myself up, going down and training, and that was working and training
Distraction.
is all I did, and talking
kept
to a mouse.
You kept yourself busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's actually what got me through. A lot of this was just focusing on beating myself up in the gym and on the training ground. So that, I mean, it's not for everybody that, but it was the only thing that I could go and do that kind of deflected the awful business of having your wife and the mother of your child, the person you love most, was gone, as Dan said, wasn't there. It was another person.
Yeah.
And very, very difficult to come to terms with that, because again, we're blokes, aren't we? So it's what's wrong with you? At the time,
And
yourself
everyone
together.
expects you to be happy. You've just had a baby.
Yeah, at the time it was, surely that can't be right, can it? That irrational and sometimes aggressive and peculiar behaviour. You take it all personally, of course, don't you? Because you think it's you. You think it's the problems with you, which I did. But yeah, that was my verdict. It's not nice, but the thing that you have to remember is that it goes away, and it goes away with time, and it goes away with sticking to your goal and being in love, being and loving somebody, because that's, it's very easy to start questioning your marriage, actually. It's very easy to do that, and that's a slippery slide. But stick to your guns, and it does go away, and it did with us. And then there was the risk of the second child, which was this one, being having the same effect. And when Sue was fine after having Sarah, I thought, I've got away with it and I've paid my dues.
Yeah.
Until guess who popped up and got it again. Well, not got it again, but went round again for another lap.
I'm going to ask about that later, actually. So I will stop you there. But I'm just glad that you found your thing. You found something that kept you slightly sane, because
that was really
it's important for everyone to find that thing, whatever it is for them, because it will be different for each person, but find something that kind of focuses your attention on something else, or puts you in the present moment. So anything that puts you in a state of flow is going to help you. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to add a couple of things, because
Yeah.
it is on the note of what was it like, wasn't
Mm.
it? And something some people might be able to relate to. I don't know if Roger can, but on this road to recovery from PND, it can be like treading on eggshells.
Mm.
A bit. That can be what it's like a bit, because obviously partner's got all these thoughts and has anxiety and different things, and you can't always be completely open. Like, I had to be so patient when, for example, with your anxiety, you struggled to even make a bottle of formula milk, for example. That was very simple, but you weren't in a good place. And when that's just a little example.
Yeah, because I couldn't even count the scoops.
So that's a little example. You're there thinking, together with the confusion, what are you doing? You have to be patient, but you can't always say what you're thinking. Is treading on eggshells, and that kind of was harder as you got better, because one thing I will say as well is the road to recovery is so up and down. You get to a point where you think, oh, it's so much better today, and the next day, and then you get lured into a false sense of security, and then bam, goes back. It's like take 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, and it can be like that.
It probably felt like that, but it was probably 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps
maybe,
forward, 1 step back.
Maybe, yeah. It just felt like a kick in the teeth when any step back came, because just thought I'd share that, because I think maybe people can relate to that, and because if it feels like that, then hearing other people talk about it is good.
And recovery is not linear. That's what I always say to people from anything. It is going to go, zigzaggy, and it's going to go up and down. But as long as, like you said, you keep that goal in sight, which is that you're going to get better or they're going to get better. Doesn't matter if you take a few steps back. Keep trying to get, keep that goal in sight. Who went first on the last question?
Me,
I can't remember.
Me.
Okay, so no, it's your turn to go first now, isn't it? No, sorry.
Well, you might
So what? Okay, Daddy.
Yes.
What did you do to help you get through it? And you've already mentioned
I've done
some
that.
of the things.
Yeah.
So did you talk to anybody, or did you just go and play rugby and go to the gym?
I didn't
Apart
talk
from the mouse, did you talk
to anybody other than the mouse. I didn't. No, and that is not how to do it for anybody out there. You need to talk to people, but we go back to the old male sort of macho image thing, and that's really not the right way to go about it. I.e., not talking to anyone. Speak to somebody, because if you do, you will feel so much better. They won't have an answer to it, but problem shared, problem halved, all that.
You wouldn't feel so lonely.
Baloney. No, but it just helps sometimes vocalising what's going on in your head, because if it stays in your head, it will fester and it will become worse, and you will then start to catastrophise. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my expert here.
It will
Catastrophise
just magnify and spiral.
And it's that's very unhealthy. That so, I didn't talk to anybody about it. When I say I didn't talk to anyone, of course I did, but I didn't talk to anyone in the way that one might open up. I just spoke to somebody when they asked how was Sue. So that's the answer to that one.
There's a lot of it's good that you turned to healthy things to do, because in that situation it's very easy for people to turn to alcohol, to turn to drugs when you need something to escape from reality. So I'm thankful, obviously, that didn't happen. That's when you would need to.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have been more keen to turn to beer and fags had it not been for being part of a club and having people there who didn't feel sorry for me but wanted wanted me to be down there because it's it was like a team. So they wanted me to be fit and ready for a Saturday. So being wanted,
and you were needed.
That
was
was quite. God knows why they needed me, but they did. So
it sounds like accountability. Is that the word for that?
Yeah,
That, 'cause
it
that
is.
can be more powerful, doesn't it? When you're doing something for yourself, you can go.
Yeah.
When you're someone else is relying on you.
Yeah, and you're letting people down by not doing the work.
And it's an emotional need met because you're being part of a community and all that kind of stuff.
So that might have been a little bit of luck that I was involved at the time with with sport.
I'm just. Oh, Jane is there. Hi, Jane. I hope you're still there. She says really interesting to hear it from a different perspective. What I will say, if you don't mind, Dan, before you answer that question, is to just share that Dan had to take. How long was it off work that you had to take when I was unwell?
At least 3 months, maybe. Do you think, or not that long?
I feel like it was longer, but I think it was
like
about
a
4
long
months.
time. But I think say 3 months, maybe.
So
at least.
Obviously that, it had enough impact on you for you to not be able to work for that time that I was at my worst. So what did you do to get you through it? What did you do to help you?
Watch Netflix mostly, but because I
Breaking Bad.
got through some boxes because
Better Call Saul,
which was
Breaking Bad.
it was a distraction at the end of the day because what I did was travel during a mother and baby unit. That was the soonest available bed in the country was 40-minute drive away, maybe 15-minute, an hour drive away. So I was driving for an hour, 10 hours with you and Aria in the hospital, in the mother and baby, and then an hour drive back. So it was a long day. I was shattered. There's no time to do anything really apart from watch some Netflix. But I was lucky in the way that I had support from Roger, who was, I have to say, you've heard him speak now, and the ideal person that I could have had to support me at that time, who nobody knew better than Roger of what I could have been going through. He'd been through himself. It was.
Start me welling up if you're not careful.
I'm going a little bit myself, but he knows what I'm about to talk about. Is because just every day that on my hour journey after being, because I was drained. You got to understand when you spend 10 hours in a specialist hospital unit and seeing your one you love, your wife as ill as that mentally, which you've never seen before. It is draining. Mentally, it's more tiring than a physical workout. I was mentally drained, and then I had to speak to Roger about it on the way home. But no, it was obviously it was a great help to me to and also I probably felt like I had to. So it was good because instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to do this for me, I thought I was doing it for Roger, but it was probably helping me by debriefing the day's events, and it was kind of just logically, right, get in the car, hands free.
But then really hard for you having to hear it, I suppose.
Maybe, yeah. I think there was an element of you wanting to know what was going on, and so I'd update Roger, and I think that was brilliant. Admittedly, it got to a point where I was so tired from the day's events that I didn't want to talk sometimes, and that happened. That was one thing. I mean, going forward later on, as you got better, I think I tried to do things like go play golf, and Roger said it. Roger's, distraction. I will say I did speak. I'm not as macho as Roger, so I spoke. So I spoke.
You don't have to believe everything that he says.
No, I remember when the moment I'm talking about when I was sort of showed emotion and I was wailing a little bit. I remember calling out to thanks to Victoria and Neil. I spoke to them and sort of said, because I knew they were the sort of closest people nearby. It was still a 40-minute drive away.
Their family, by the way, just to put people in the picture because they won't know who that is, but they're close family, aren't they?
close family of Sarah,
Yeah.
but I got on really well and I'm close with them. So I just got on the blower and said to them when that happened, I said I got to come see you and stay with you, and they were like, yeah, cool, it's time to, and I did that, and that helped me massively. So it's important to just remove yourself from the situation, even though it feels weird, because you feel like you've got to support them and be with them. But you've
you
got
need
to look
normality
you've
as
got to
well.
look after yourself as well, and I had to make that call to some maybe one day not turn up and go do something else. And yeah, anyway,
They're all really good points, and lots of the things I'm forgetting about, you know, as you're talking about them, because obviously I wasn't always aware of what's going on, far from it. So it's really interesting, and I think this will help me to be, you know, to be more supportive to any dads who might be going through it or something similar.
And be nice to me.
And be nice to you. Am I not nice to you?
One thing I have to add, because this is key for me. When I went through the whole thing, was just listening and hearing and understanding the fact that it is temporary. Because that is the one notion in my head that I kept. That kind of made me okay, because I was like, you just think. I had to trust the professionals. They all told me it's temporary. You know, prognosis is it can maybe take a year. Some people, you know, were saying that, you know, it can take a long time. But at the end of the day, it was temporary. The way you were acting at the time.
Yeah.
You know, if you were to think that that's it now, that's what life's like, that would be a hard pill to swallow. But knowing that it's temporary, and it is, things get better, is a massive thing to keep.
And that's it gives you perspective, and you were able to try and give that perspective to me, because I could only see it as forever. Obviously, I was completely locked in my emotional brain, and I thought, this is me forever. I'm never going to get better. He's never going to love me because I'm going to be this different person. And that was just the way it was. But you know, both of you helped get that through to me, because you were like, well, Mummy got better, and so you're going to get better.
Yeah, it just is. It still hurts though when you refer to darling as her when you were ill.
Oh yeah, she was called the baby.
Yeah, or the
She didn't
baby,
have a
or
name.
her, and it's still, no matter how many times you hear it, that
Victoria's there.
projects a notion of distance between you and Aria, which is, as the father of the child, or the grandfather even, that's a really worrying part of the illness, is that detachment, and it's kind of vocalised, that detachment, by using words like the baby or her.
Yeah, I didn't call her by her name until she was about 4 months old.
No.
And even it took until about 6 months for me to actually acknowledge that I had a relationship with her, and it was going to be that it was going to improve. So just quickly,
So Victoria's here now.
Victoria's here now,
and
she's
she's not heard the bit about her, so
maybe she
that's
might
a
have been there.
good job, that.
Yeah, but she might have been there already. She might have been watching.
But hi Victoria, and thank you for the help and support that you and Neil gave.
And still do.
To our time, and still do. But I mentioned
to
you
all
just
of
now.
us. So I want to, if you can think of 3 things each that are 3 pieces of advice that you can give to either a dad that's going through the same thing, or maybe just a new dad who's adjusting to being a dad. So I know that you've kind of touched on one of yours already.
If you need some time, Roger.
Do you want to start with the one that you'd already
Oh yeah, I said
mentioned?
the key thing.
I need a week.
The key, the key thing for me is knowing that it's temporary. Temporary.
That was mine.
Yeah, well,
but
that's
it's natural that you're gonna have the same
that
things.
genuinely that in my mind when someone asks me about that time, it really sticks in my head, the fact that you go to these meetings with, is it the
I can't remember. There was always lots of people
psychiatrist. You go to a meeting with the psychiatrist and Sarah to a review of how things are going, and I just want answers. You're just like, well, what's happening here? What's going on? What's the plan? And they didn't really have a lot of answers, apart from the main answer they could give me is that this is temporary. That was like the main thing that they said.
And I think didn't Daddy say it to you as well?
Probably, yeah, probably.
He said, you know, like that's.
Yeah.
I seem to remember that.
So I was just like, oh, it's fine then. Okay, so you just ignore everything that's happening now and just get through this bit, and everything's going to be fine. And that helps. I mean, it sounds a bit black and white, but
no, it's important because like it puts things into perspective, doesn't it? And makes you realise that this is, yes, it's a shit phase of your life, but this is in the context of my whole life. This is actually, a year is a relatively short time, isn't it, in your whole life? It's just unfortunate that it's when you decide to start a family that's when it happens.
So the other thing I was going to say is...
your other two.
Is this 3 tips for people going through this, isn't
it?
Yeah.
So
have you had one?
Three either
I've
tips
had one.
or pieces
One
of
is
advice.
my key one is know that it's temporary, right? I've got down here as well. Obvious one is, you know, be supportive as you can, because they need so much support in this time. You have to dig deep with the patients, because honestly, when you hear something like Roger said, hear some of the things that they're saying that is so not them, and some of them can be quite horrendous. The things you were saying, but you have to realise it's not them. So be as patient as you can, and a bit of tough love as well is a tip, because when you're at your lowest, you didn't want to do a lot. You just sort of go to bed, and I think a tip is to encourage and sort of force them to do things. Like Sarah didn't want to get out of bed, so it's good to force them to get out of bed, get changed, have a shower. These are little practical things, because I just remember that was good for you, because once you get moving, you start the day, you feel better. And I force you to go for a walk, for example, because you didn't want to go. I just remembered you didn't want, in the mother and baby unit, Sarah did not even want to go outside. Was scared. She was scared of everything.
Yeah, I was too
scared of
afraid to go
everything.
outside.
Like, you can't imagine. You could be scared of such small things, but she was scared to go. So to get her to go outside for a walk was the hardest thing ever. But you have to keep trying, and by breaking those barriers, even though she didn't want to do it, I think helps.
The only thing I'd like to change about that is the word force.
Okay, yeah, that's a bit strong, maybe.
I would change it to encourage. So just keep encouraging, every day. Encourage them to go outside, or encourage, just like small things that were going to slightly push you out of your comfort zone, but not massively. Cause,
no headlocks allowed.
And I think this is really a personality thing as well. I think that for some people that might actually make them feel worse, but for me that helped me, because
did it?
I'm a perfectionist, and so I felt good when I did something for myself, or if I did something that was an improvement, because that kind of fed off my personality and my sort of inner control freak, whereas for some people that might not help. But it's an interesting one. That's my perspective anyway. So Daddy, what's your 3
Well,
pieces
he's
of advice?
taken all mine now. Point number 1 is one day at a time, which is what you talked about.
That's a good way of putting it.
But
yeah,
it's
that's
one day at a
helpful.
time, and don't expect too much. That's one. The other one is, remember that it may not be just your partner that is ill, and focus on yourself, because and you can do it in various different ways. But I went and beat myself up in training. But you can do, you might be a stamp collector, or well, probably not. Yeah, you might be a stamp.
Your hobby
but
is.
put some effort into your own well-being. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing that I would say, is open your mouth and talk about how you feel and your situation, because that is so valuable. It's not. I didn't do that. and probably suffered more for not doing it. But talk to somebody, or if there isn't anybody there, a mouse.
Did that help? Do you think
Or
that helped?
just yourself.
Do you think that helped?
Yeah.
Well, you were
Talking to
voicing
My
things that were in
talking
your
to the
head.
mouse.
I see that as
Yeah.
like a form of journaling. Like some people write things down, but you were just saying them and getting them out.
Well, he wasn't there every
to
night.
us.
Did you name him?
No, I didn't. Never knew his name. Ships in the night we were.
Yeah.
Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins.
Victoria's done some clapping hands.
Ah, she's
Um,
showing appreciation.
Oh, that's for me. That's for my ones.
This question, stop the competitiveness now. This question is literally you only need to say yes or no to. It's
Right.
do you think
Yeah.
dads get enough support? Or obviously for you this was 30 odd years ago, but was there any
black and
support
white.
for dads then? Or
You're
not?
back to this. Sorry, is it me?
Yeah.
You're back to this whole thing. If there was, I wouldn't have sought
Mm.
any support
'Cause you
because
wouldn't
I
have thought
genuinely
that there
didn't think I needed it because I think I'm tough as old boots, and I'm not, and nobody is. And had there been some support, and had I been of a mind to go and seek that support, I'm sure I would have been, I would have felt better
Yeah.
than I did. I rest my case.
But there probably wasn't support then anyway.
I don't know.
expect,
I never found out whether there was or there wasn't.
So, when you went to visit Mummy in hospital, for instance, did they ever ask how you were doing or offer any like
No.
groups for the dads to come and chat?
To be honest, in those days, in black and white days, I was a little bit in the way when I went to visit.
Yeah.
When I went to visit you, they were quite friendly, weren't they? They were quite, and they would answer any questions when they could.
Yeah.
I think that their jobs there must have just been a barrage of questions because nobody really understands, and all the people visiting, people in your place must have just saying, when's this going to happen, what about that, will she get better, what, you know. So that was a yes or no answer, that.
Okay. Nice.
Right, I'll do it.
So,
Yes or no.
Or maybe.
did you get any support, and do you think dads get enough support as new dads or in our circumstances?
Difficult to answer that with a yes no, isn't it? But yes and no. I mean, there was is it Acacia?
Acacia, yeah.
So was that for you to start with?
I
Or-
think so. I think once I was home and I had been sort of discharged from the hospital, they referred me to Acacia, which is a charity. They were a local charity that support mums who have kind of, I think it was more to do with milder depression, but then because I was already a bit better, I was able to go see them.
So
and
really,
then they checked in with you and asked
Right.
if you needed any support, didn't
so
they?
at the start, it was no, just in support mode and being strong for you. Then as you got a bit better, and in case you got involved and spoke to me, I did take up the opportunity to speak to someone there. I spoke to someone there, and like I said earlier, I leaned on Victoria and Neil. I just picked up the phone and spoke to them. Obviously, I picked up the phone to Roger as well.
Yeah.
I saved them. So yeah, a little bit.
I think it probably, if you want it or if you need it and you reach out for it, there will be support there. But like you've kind of both acknowledged, unless you talk about it and you are willing to be vulnerable and say that you need help, then you may not see it, or it's not just going to appear.
Yeah, in general, I don't think people
look for it.
think of the fathers as much in those situations. So, coupled with what Roger's saying, how the notion that we're supposed to be tough, or we think we're supposed to be tough, that together, you're less likely to go and seek it, aren't you? In case someone says, "What are you talking about? It's your wife that's got an issue, not you."
But then you're in a completely new role as a parent. You're doing most of or in your case, you were looking after Arya the most. So you actually needed far more support than you did have, but that's my opinion. Okay, well, we've talked for 50 minutes,
Should we wrap it
because we
up?
started at 2 minutes.
Are we hungry yet?
We're
Oh,
hungry,
not too
and I'm just going to, if anyone on there now, I'm just going to ask before we go, has anyone got any questions for either Dan or Roger,
Tibbs,
Daddy?
Lolo.
So I'll leave it a minute or so to see if anyone's got any questions or just comments that you want to say to either of them or me.
You might want to comment on Dan's hair style.
We hope
Oh, yeah.
we hope that you've enjoyed it, and
It's lockdown here.
and it's been interesting, insightful. I'm guessing from the comments that you have enjoyed listening to their perspective. Oops, what have I done there? Hang on.
Do you want to tell people about if they want to hear any more another time about anything
Oh, yeah.
particular? Then it doesn't have to be a question now. But
Yeah. Oh, Vicky, still there. Thanks, guys. I found this so interesting. I always knew the shoesmiths were pretty amazing.
Oh,
love to you all.
You're lovely, you are. We love you, Vicky.
Yeah, and the Fernandezes are amazing too. Fernandezes. Jane says, thank you for sharing your experiences.
Oh, we love you too.
Thanks,
I know,
Jane. You do.
Sweet.
Jane also suffered from postpartum psychosis.
In the
So
Baby
this will have
Unit.
been really interesting
I
for
know
her.
you. Hi,
Yeah.
Jane.
So I think you may have met her as well.
Oh.
At the same, she was in the hospital at the same time as me.
Right.
So, what would do if you have found this interesting, as Dan reminded me, then I would like to do more sessions like this kind of thing, and maybe talk about different things like the issues that we have as a couple, me and Dan.
Only if people
Which- Yeah, if you
want-
like this kind of format and you want to hear more from a man's perspective, then let me know.
And we'll start charging.
Yeah. And obviously I want to thank both of you for agreeing to do it in the first place, because it's a new thing and it's a brave thing to do, to show your vulnerability, but
No, not
I'm
anymore.
grateful for both of you, and well done for doing it.
Thanks for having us.
I don't think we made too much of a fool of ourselves.
We ate lunch.
Oh, Jane says we ate lunch together most days.
She's talking to me, is she?
Yeah,
Probably?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Well, you were there most days, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah,
see,
got to
I have
know-
no recollection of that at all.
I did get to know a lot of the mums in there, really, didn't I? Yeah.
Veronica says, never suffered, but nursed women who have. Yes, nice to have the male pooing. I think
Point of view.
she's meant to say point the male pooing
The
of
male-
you
the
and
ma-
humour.
The male pooing of you.
Pooing of viewing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the lovely comments. We're going to go and eat now. We're hungry and we've done a lot of talking, so let me turn this off. No, that doesn't work. I'll hopefully try and share this on Instagram as well. Thank you, both of you, and bye-bye.
Okay.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Oh,
Bye-bye.
wait a minute. There. Bye bye.
Hang on.
I went like that, you see, to get my hand.
Why is it not ended? I pressed end and now it's not ended. There we go. End.
Well done, everyone.
Well
done.
done.
Well done, Rog.
Yeah, we're made for it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well done. Sweaty palms.